Welcome back. The controversial increase to the prepared meal tax goes into effect this Tuesday, but it may change again in the future. With us, House Minority Leader Themis Klaradis, a Republican. We did invite someone from the administration to join us, but a guest, we were told, was not available. And Representative Klaradis, good to see you here in the program.
Thank you.
What do you think of this increase in the meal tax? It's been very controversial in recent weeks.
It has been. I mean, the bottom line is there was a budget put out in June that not one Republican in the House and Senate voted for. It passed. It was written by the Democrats. It was written by the Democrats in the House and the Senate. It was written by the governor's office. They collaboratively wrote it. The language in it specifically added the two words grocery store, which allowed them to have a Pandora's box open of any option in a grocery store to be taxed. Because right now groceries are not taxed, but prepared foods in a grocery store are, to show parity between restaurants, McDonald's, grocery stores.
So this goes into effect this Tuesday, October 1st. Are you confident that it will be executed without any problems?
Well, here's the problem. Nobody said a word about it until the public started to learn about it, and then they were very upset, as we all heard and read and saw. And what happened was then the governor came out and said, yes, I knew about it. We need the revenue. And a few days later, the governor changed and directed the Department of Revenue Services Commissioner, his appointment, to redo his interpretation of it. Now, the bottom line is this. If they feel strongly about the fact that they did not intend to add additional groceries to the taxable items list, then we should go back in session like we've asked and just take those two words, grocery store, out of the bill. Very simple. But what they're doing is they're playing a little shell game with you. They're all saying, see, we fixed the grocery tax. We're the ones that brought it to everybody's attention. We're the ones that asked to go back into special session. But what's happening is they're saying, we'll just ask the commissioner to reinterpret the law. The law is still in the books. Statutes are statutes. They can only change if you go into special session, and they're just playing a shell game with you, because if the language is still in there, on October 1st they're saying it won't be taxed, but it could be taxed on November 1st or February 1st or January 1st.
There won't be a special session, so you'll have to deal with it next year in the regular session. What kind of changes do you want to see?
Well, we will be in special session for other items. We will be eventually for the hospital tax changes. We'll be going back into session for the changes in the restaurant bill. So there will be opportunities to change it if they have the will to do it. As I said, we did not support the increase in prepared food tax from 6.35% as it is now under current law to 7.35%. But at the very least, the language grocery store needs to come out of there, and their intention needs to be specific in the law. If they are serious about it, they will do that, but they're not. They just know that the public is upset, so they're playing a shell game with you.
So what's your advice for customers as they go into stores on Tuesday?
I mean, listen, I would be very careful. I would check your bill, because here's the problem. Coming from a grocery store family, my grandparents came over here from Greece many, many years ago and started a grocery store. My parents continued that tradition for many years. I know that as a business owner, you're afraid of the Department of Revenue Services. Nobody wants to be audited. And I think what's going to happen is some markets and some stores are going to end up charging that tax because they're afraid of the interpretation. Interpretation is a vague word, but a law is a law. They should change the law.
There were some Republicans who said that Governor Malloy was difficult to work with. How would you describe your working relationship with the current governor, Governor Lamont?
Listen, I've said this many times. I think he's a nice man. Governor Malloy was a little difficult to work with at times, but this governor's a nice man. I just don't happen to agree with the policies that he's put forth. And I don't think that the way he's operated has been effective for the state of Connecticut. And most importantly, I don't think it has added to the trust factor that the citizens have in our government.
The confusion over this increased meal tax, do you blame him for that?
Well, I will say that if we go back to January when session began, if you remember, the governor was floating a grocery tax. And the Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader did a press conference at one point, and they said, and the Speaker specifically said the words, everybody needs to take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. So he didn't say he didn't like it. So the idea that they are making like this was not their intention, they never saw it. You see from the Senate Democrats and the House Democrats, you've seen mailers come out in the last week saying, see, we fought it and we stopped it. The governor floated that in the beginning of session. The leadership didn't say they didn't like it at that point. And now all of a sudden this is happening, and I've never seen anything like it where they wrote the budget, they voted for the budget, yet they have no idea how this happened.
As we move forward into 2020, do you think 2020 is going to be a Republican year in this state? and I'm going to ask you this because, as you know, we're talking about impeachment a little bit later in this program, and President Trump seemed to hurt many of your Republican candidates last go around. Do you think he'll be a factor this year, or could it be worse with the impeachment?
You know, what goes on in Washington goes on in Washington. People that run for Congress and U.S. Senate, they're dealing with that situation. That's their decision. And hopefully that will be dealt with in an effective, honest way. What we do is we run for state office, and we are facing a $3 billion budget deficit. We are facing a governor and a majority in this state that raided the Special Transportation Fund $170 million and raised your taxes $1.7 billion. So that's what we're fighting for.
Some of those Republican seats that flipped Democrat last go around, do you think you can get them back? What's the strategy for that?
If the state of Connecticut continues to go in the direction they're going, people are upset, they're irate, they're disappointed, and they don't have any trust in the people that are leading the state.
Is that what your constituents are saying? Are they unhappy in the state right now?
Hear
Because
it
a lot
every
of
day.
people think that their own personal economies are doing better.
Well, you hear it every day. I mean, and I'm sure you hear it. How many people do you hear every day tell you, I can't wait until fill in the blank. My husband retires, my wife retires, my children graduate from high school, we're leaving here because we can't afford it here anymore, and this state does not like us.
It's going to be a fascinating year, 2020. Themis Klaradis, the House Minority Leader, we thank you for being in the program today.